Welcome to another episode of the Financial Armor Show. My name is Brad Cooper, the president of Cooper Financial Investments. And I want to welcome today my amazing, awesome co host, Tony Shore, who I'm looking at
Wow.
directly.
Yeah. We're in the same room. We're in the new studios at the Gradient Metroplex in beautiful downtown Arden Hills, Minnesota today.
Yes, what an amazing studio. And I'm looking out the window and I need some help, Tony. I see some white stuff
Uh-oh.
on the ground. What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And a lot of it. Yeah. Yeah. Out in Stillwater, where I live, we had 14 inches overnight.
14 inches.
Yeah.
And I just flew into Minnesota. I came from 80-degree, sunny, blue sky weather to...
Stop rubbing it in.
I know.
God's country out there in Arizona.
It's amazing.
I love it. What are we both doing in Minnesota right now?
Well, that's a $1 million question.
It
So
is.
short trip for me, but I'm so excited, Tony, to be
Yeah.
up here. Number one, to be with you and record a show that we're doing shortly, but also...
Sure.
I've been invited up here as well to speak to a group of advisors on estate planning, life insurance, investments, and really all the changes that's going on in our financial world today, which I'm really excited to do.
Well, there are a lot of changes, and we've been talking about those. I know you've been bringing a lot of different changes as far as financial planning, retirement planning, just in the last few years and just in the past year. There have been a lot of changes, and we've talked about those on past shows. If our listeners and viewers want to go check those out, they can check out past shows, right?
That's right. And I would encourage you to do so. If you haven't really took the time out to review your current retirement plan, I encourage you to do so, whether it's with us or with your advisor. There has been so many changes, and there's going to be changes to come. So if you're not sitting down and addressing every, what I like to call, piece of the financial puzzle, which there's multiple pieces,
right?
And if you're just doing, what's right with one piece and you don't know about the other pieces of the financial puzzle, that's when you need to take the time to really sit down and address those other pieces.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what is our topic for today, Brad?
Well, we're going to talk about, Tony, today, the 3 essential retirement phases of retirement. And it may be an overlap, but also a little bit more detailed information if you are looking at retirement. Motley Fool article I just read over the past week titled Planning to Retire in 10 Years. Do these 4 things first.
Okay.
And just to get into detail, the first is determine how much money you'll need yearly to maintain your ideal retirement lifestyle. And it's funny, every time I ask this question, I get a confused look because it's not your everyday question and answer you get. If you're retired today, how much money would you like coming in on a monthly basis to enjoy your retirement the next 10, 20, 30 years? And most people freeze when it comes to that question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think people have given it a lot of thought, especially at the 10 years out mark. People put it off, as you've seen people come in like, hey, I want to retire next year. What do I do? Really, you need to start thinking about it a lot sooner. I mean, you're talking about the first phase of retirement planning to plan for retirement. You got to start about 10 years out, you're saying.
Absolutely. You don't want to start, a month out or even a year out. Be proactive. And so that's the first question that we will ask. And we'll help you come up with that answer. A lot of times, what's common in our industry, and if you're reading and researching, is the 80% rule. If you don't know right now, let's say your income, just to keep the numbers simple, you're making $10,000 a month. The 80% rule would be 80% of $10,000 per month, $8,000.
Sure.
Because your tax liability may go down initially. You don't have the cost of your 401k and insurance and other taxes that you normally would have to pay. So you may not need as much net on a monthly basis. So that's the first area that we talk about. And we kind of work into that backwards, if you will. Number one, here's how much you need, but let's look at all your other sources of income that you may have. And that could be what? Social Security,
Sure.
which a lot of times represents a big percentage of what you need. Still today, a lot of our clients are getting pensions.
Yeah.
So that helps. And then whatever that shortfall, which I call a monthly shortfall, let's call it $3,000 per month. Then that's the amount that we're going to know we're going to need to pull from your investments on a monthly basis for the rest of your life and to make sure you don't run out of money.
Yeah. And that's the key. And knowing what amount you'll need in retirement is the big question. I know a lot of people come to you with, and that's part of your job, helping them figure out what's right for them because everybody's situation is different. It's nice that there's that rule of thumb, Brad, that you have that you mentioned, the 80% rule. But again, everybody's going to be different. I think a lot of people don't want to take a pay cut in retirement, so they want to match at least what their take home was, right? And so I think that's huge. So you can use the 80% and 4% guidelines, and then maybe adapt and customize them with the help of a financial professional like yourself.
No, absolutely. I just reminds me of another study I read, which is pretty depressing. They said that over 75% of widows or widowers, but
Sure.
over 75% nationwide will end up in poverty when their spouse passes away. So when you're looking at what I call retirement income planning, you want to make sure you're set up for success. And a common percentage that our industry likes to use is the 4% rule, which
Sure.
I know, Tony, you've heard of the 4% rule.
Yep.
Basically, what is the 4% rule? Let's say you have a nest egg of $1 million. Historically, if you pull 4%, which would be $40,000, you will never run out of money. But here several years ago, that rule was changed.
Yeah.
They found that with a few down years in the market and you're pulling money out, maybe you can't take 4% out. Actually, it was just reduced to 2.6%. So
Yikes, that's a pretty big
that
reduction.
is from 40,000 to 26,000. Then you take in consideration of inflation and inflating other prices, healthcare costs. It doesn't leave room for balance. But
Right.
that's an area that we take a very serious look at, and we make sure whether you're married or you're not, we make sure that for the rest of your life, whether you pass away at 83, 85, 103, you're not going to run out of money.
Right. Yeah, that's the key. None of us want to run out of money, and you need to have a plan. So what's the next important step?
Review your current 401k plan if you have a 401k or maybe
Okay.
403b.
Sure.
And especially if you're within 10 years out or less from retirement, you really need to take a serious look at your risk. And really, if you don't understand the true risk you're taking, meet with your financial service professional and make sure that your risk lines up with their definition of risk. Because here's what I'm seeing, Tony, on a daily basis as we're sitting down with new people and we're identifying what risk they should be taking according to how much risk they want to take.
Sure.
They're taking more risk than most 35, 40-year-olds are taking,
Wow.
which one downturn in the market could wipe out 20, 30, 40% of their life savings and cause them to maybe have to work another 5, 10, 15 years in addition to the 10 years.
Wow. And you know what? Risk is a big part of financial planning and especially retirement income planning, right? You have to
That's right.
plan for risk. And I know you have a lot of tools you use with your clients or people you meet with. You provide them with, I think it's an 11 questionnaire that helps them determine what their own personal risk tolerance is, right?
Yes, I love this easy test. It's 11 quick questions, maybe takes you 60 to 90 seconds to complete. And there's no pass or fail. You will get a
Right.
score.
Right.
I call it your personal risk score. And what that does is it gives us a number on how you answer those questions and it personalizes that risk score. So then we take that score in addition to your goals, when you want to retire, how much money you need to pull from your portfolio on a monthly basis. So there's about 3 or 4 different things that we take a look at when it comes to risk. Then we will analyze with the help of our team your portfolio, and we'll identify real quick if you're taking more risk, equal risk that you should be taking, or less risk, and
Yeah.
let you know that.
Yeah, well, I think it's important when it comes to the risk survey that you have. I think that's really important to figure out what your risk tolerance is and make sure that you have a good balance. And I know you don't have everything at risk and don't have everything in too safe options, so you lose out on growth, right?
That's right. Because you want to keep up with inflation, you want to make money on your money, but also at the same time, and I don't hear too many financial service professionals talking and asking and making this comment, if you will. It's important to make money on your money, which we all agree.
Right.
But what's even more important is protecting your nest egg from a 30, 40, 50% loss. Because here's the statistics, it's simple math. If you lose 50% of your life savings, the following year, Tony, you need a 100% return on your investment just to bring your loss back up to break
Wow.
even.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What's the chance of that happening? Slim to none.
Slim to none.
And Slim left town. So, with that said, let's go back to 2007, 8, 2009. Average investor in that 18-month period lost 56.6% of their life savings.
Wow.
It took them over 5 years, the average investor that is nationwide, over 5 years, some 7 years, just to recoup their loss. But we're all trained the same way in our industry, Tony. When that happens, we're trained to tell our clients, it's okay. Hang in there.
Right.
It'll rebound. Well, I disagree with that.
Huh.
Especially if you're approaching retirement, or maybe you're in retirement, you may not have 5 or 10 years to recoup your loss, especially if you're depending on that money for retirement income.
Yeah. Well, that's huge. That's a great point. And it's not the conventional point that people hear all the time. Oh, just let it ride. Well, if you need the money next year for income, you don't have the time on your side. It depends on your time horizon. And you've said this before to me, Brad, which I thought was great. You said, Tony, it's more about when you need the money and when you have the money than how much. Right? It's
Absolutely.
when you need it. So we need to take a quick break to let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you, Brad.
Absolutely. Tony, if you want to call our office Monday through Friday, talk to a live person, call our toll free number, 888 390 5277. Again, that's 888 390 5277. Or you can visit our site at financialarmorshow.com. Again, that's financialarmorshow.com. And feel free just to sit down with us over a cup of coffee at no cost, no obligation, just a visit to get that second opinion on your portfolio and see if you're able to retire when you want to. And Tony, this is exciting. I would say not 100% of the time, but I would say at least maybe 60, 70% of the time when we're sitting down with new people and they're wanting to retire maybe the next 5 years or less.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 60, 70% of the time, we're letting them know if you wanted to retire today, you can.
Wow.
And that's powerful.
Yeah.
Not that the majority will retire today, but I tell you what, psychologically, if you know you can go into your JOB and maybe there's a lot of stress there, but you're just hanging around, just because you thought you had to, things change.
Yeah.
Knowing that you have the ability to really walk away anytime you want.
That's a huge thing. That's a huge feeling and position to be in.
It is.
It's really freeing, right?
I just had a client who just recently retired, and this happened to him several years ago. I told him, you know what? You can leave today. You could retire today based on what great job you have done, the amount of money you have, and your goals of what you need. And he was in a very high stressful job. He went into work the next day, and I think his boss realized that he could walk away anytime he wanted, things changed almost 100%, with him and the way his boss started treating him
Sure.
thereafter.
Oh, sure.
He hung in there for several more years,
Yeah.
but the environment was great, less stress. And so that's really exciting. But if you're not on course and you can't retire today, you need to wait 5 years, be prepared. And that was another article I just read from Investopedia article. Want to retire in 5 years? What you must know and do now. So again, if you're within 5 years from retirement, once again, that's the big thing. Determine how much money you want coming in on a monthly basis.
Right.
And if you have a hard time determining that, let us help. But also, you probably want at least what you have coming in, or at least 80% of what you have coming in now, and to enjoy retirement.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the big one, 5 years. I think this is key. You really have to be serious about your retirement plans when you're 5 years or less out. And, there are a lot of reasons to work with someone like yourself, Brad. But I think, you know, being certain that the changes that have happened in your life are going to be represented in your financial strategy and that you have a solid retirement plan in place, that's the reason right there. That's as good a reason as any to pick up the phone and work with your trusted financial professional. And I encourage our listeners to give you a call because I know you're more than happy to help them. You've helped so many people do this, and it is so critical.
Absolutely, Tony. And and I've said this before, you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I'll be the first to admit, I know my industry very well. However, other industries, the healthcare industry, which, we've been involved in the last several years, and other industries, I don't. So seek out the advice. And I always tell people the only decision you have to make during the first time we visit, which is absolutely free, is, do we want to meet again? And I can promise you that that first visit, getting more information that's personal to you and more knowledge about all the other, what I call pieces of the financial puzzle, that may be tax planning, estate planning, elder care planning, and the list goes on. We have strategic partners that specialize in those areas, which we are involved in on a regular basis. So, which leads to, let's go back to 5 years. What looks different than 10 years? Here's a question you want to ask yourself. What's the next 10, 20, 30 years look like? And what I mean by that is, are you in good health? Of course, anything can happen. How much money do I have? So there's a lot of other factors that you got to look at that play into retirement. Good example, I have a client right now that back when they turned 62, we had to make a decision. Do we want to file for Social Security?
Sure. Because you can file as early as 62.
Right.
It's a reduced amount you get. It's filing early, but you can file at 62.
Right. So in their case, and keep in mind, nothing's black and white. Every person's situation's different. In their situation, this person, high stress, hated, despised going into work. Their health was terrible. Their longevity in their family, all died at an early age. So our recommendation, after looking at everything that they had and the entire, financial picture, was file for Social Security. Take your Social Security. And they did.
Yeah.
I just met with them a few weeks ago, Tony, and wow, they are enjoying retirement. The stress level has dropped by almost 100%, and they're just living the dream.
That's great.
Which that helps me sleep at night, and that's really what keeps me going day in and day out, and probably one of the many reasons why I probably will never retire.
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah, I mean, if you love what you do, you won't be in that situation where you have to file at 62. But if you're in a stressful job or you have health issues, that's a great illustration of how everybody's situation is different. For some people, the best time to file is immediately at 62 for Social Security. But you've talked about Social Security before on
Right.
past shows. And for a lot of people, it might be waiting until full retirement age or waiting until they're 70 even,
Right.
depending on the longevity in their family, their current health, how much money they have in other aspects, if they have a pension, if they have an IRA, 401k, and how much they need each month. So a lot of these questions have to be answered. It sounds like too much math to me, which is why you're here. It sounds like a
Yes.
lot of calculations. I know you also have software that helps you with Social Security maximization to
Right.
figure out that sweet spot, because everybody's sweet spot's a little different. You know, it might be 66 and 5
Right.
months, it might be 67 and 6 months, it might be 64 and 2 months. It can be one of many, but and spousal benefits play a part in that too. So
Absolutely.
that's huge. So that is something to start thinking about when you're 5 years out of retirement, but it's really about how much am I going to need and when again, right?
You're right. So all those things that we've talked about, Tony, are so important. One last thing that you want to take in consideration and have this discussion. We've talked about this in shows past is long-term care. As we're
Yes.
aging, statistics say that, there's over a 75-80% chance that one spouse, if you're married,
Mhm.
will need long-term care.
Yeah.
And the cost of that is very pricey and going up each and every year. So if you don't prepare for that properly, and I'm not recommending that everyone run out and buy a long-term care policy
Oh,
per
yeah.
se, and I would discourage that
Yeah.
for many reasons, which we could talk about. But there's other strategies that have long-term care benefits that are tied to life insurance strategies and others that we can educate you about. So that's another area that you really want to look at as far as future retirement expenses.
Yeah. Yeah, and the options, we've talked about them before, but you've mentioned cash value life insurance with long-term care.
Right.
It can bump up, or you can take some of the death benefit to use for long-term care. Some insurance have great policies now because they know the traditional long-term care policies don't work.
Right.
Right. But if you happen to have a certain type of an annuity or a life insurance policy, those can sometimes be structured to utilize and pay for your long-term care, or at least help out. Because, yeah, I mean, it's up to $12,000 a month in some areas.
That's
So,
crazy. And
yeah, it's nuts.
it doesn't take long to, reduce your entire nest egg
Right.
over a period of several years. So,
Right.
that's a fun discussion, which we know a lot about, that our industry does a very poor job of covering. So, but let's say now you're within a year of retirement or
Yes.
maybe months out. What should you be doing? Number one, update your budget.
There you go.
That nasty B word that we never want to talk
Yeah, if
about.
you haven't figured it out by then, when you're within a year of retirement, you better have a
Oh,
budget planned out, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Another area is required minimum distributions, which now start at age 73, which ties into also taxes. So that's another area that right now, federal income taxes, which we have talked a lot about, are at an all-time low.
Yeah.
However, that's going to change in the next few years. They're going to start going up, and that could be a big impact, especially when you turn 73 and the IRS requires you to start taking money out of your IRA, whether you want it or not.
Yeah, and pay taxes on it. You have to take it out and pay taxes on it, which is the problem, right? I mean, that's
Right.
that's the thing. Yeah, RMDs are important, and people might think, well, I don't need to worry about that until I'm 73. No, yeah, before you hit retirement, you might want to have a plan in place and see how much you're going to need. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And why it's so important, even if you're younger and not close to 73 yet, Tony, is I've just met with a couple that has $2.5 million in an IRA. A lot of money, right?
In an IRA?
In an IRA.
Wow.
Okay, early
Yeah.
60s.
Wow.
So they're not going to have to worry about RMDs for another, 15 years or
Right.
so. What if the market does like it's done the last 15, 20 years, the next 15 to 20 years? That 2.5 million, maybe 10 million or $15 million
Right.
if they don't use it. Now your RMD is going to be based on that dollar amount.
And it's going to be huge, and they're going to want you to pay.
Oh,
If it's a traditional IRA that all this money is, which I assume it is, because it would be
yes,
hard to build that kind of money up in a Roth, but it's technically, I guess, possible. But the thing is, man, that's a lot of tax burden for someone, and so you might want to start spreading it out or have a plan going into retirement how that's going to
exactly.
work, right?
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're doing, which ties into another discussion we're having is with Medicare. And based on your income, if it's too much, you're going to be hit with a surcharge. So that's something that's unplanned. I've met a lot of people that become clients that are paying an extra $200 to $300 each per month because their income is above the threshold that Medicare
Wow.
allows.
Yeah.
So that's another area that we're looking at.
Yeah, you might strategically plan so you can avoid that. Depending on when you take income, how much you take, there are strategies involved, and sometimes, hey, that's the way it's going to have to be. Sometimes there are strategies I know you can utilize to help people with that.
And that's what we enjoy, Tony.
Yeah,
So I would encourage you. We covered a lot today in today's show
yeah,
as
we
far
did.
as how to prepare. And I don't expect everyone to memorize everything we talked about, but I would encourage you to reach out to us, have that, visit and ask the questions that we can give you answers to. If we don't have answers, we have, in my opinion, some of the smartest people in the United States when it comes to investments, tax planning, estate planning, and we can get those answers for you. And again, just to share the number, Tony, with our listeners, 888-390-5277. That's toll free, 888-390-5277. Or you can visit our website, financialarmorshow.com. Again, that's financialarmorshow.com. Not only to contact us through our website, but also to catch up on past shows that we've done, which we talked a lot about taxes, long-term care, Social Security, and the list goes on. All these important topics that we will cover when we get together with people.
All right. Well, Brad, great show today. A lot of information. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. And that does it for today's episode of Financial Armor Show with our host, Brad Cooper.
Thank you, Tony.